The curve card can be confusing, so that's why in this video, I'm going to go through some common questions I've been getting and try to answer them the best that I can. First with the question, what is so special about the curve card? So basically the curve card is an all-in-one card. If I could explain it in simple terms, think of the curve card as an Apple Wallet, Google Pay, or Samsung Pay, where you'll load all of your credit cards, all of your debit cards onto the Apple Wallet, for example, and when you want to make a purchase, you don't have to have the actual physical card on you if it's in your Apple Wallet because you can just use Apple Pay to make the purchase. Basically the same thing with the curve card, but further beyond the smart wallets like the Apple Wallet, you can set up smart rules in the curve card app. Whenever a purchase codes a certain way, it will automatically put it on the correct card. So that's pretty neat, you don't have to think about it. If you weren't going to set up smart rules, then whatever card you selected in the app, when you use the curve card to pay, that will be the card that will be ultimately charged in the end. So basically exactly what ONG Yas Zaddy said, if you all had the curve card, you could have a smaller wallet with all of your cards. That's basically the curve card, one card to rule them all. And just to make it clear, the credit card MD asked, you said you have to make the transactions on another card and move them over. You don't actually ever put a transaction on the curve card. So I know this is a little bit confusing, but the curve card does have its own credit card within the curve card. I like to refer to it as the curve credit. So the curve credit you shouldn't actually use. It's a $500 credit limit and it doesn't really give any value. It's just sort of there for the anti-embarrassment protection, which is basically if you try to charge another card when you're using the curve card and that doesn't go through, instead of declining the charge, it'll go onto your curve credit card within the curve card, if that makes any sense. So in essence, you're supposed to use a physical curve card to swipe, insert, or tap for the transaction. And within the curve card app, you're supposed to select another credit card, like for example the Capital One Quicksilver or the Chase Freedom Flex, another card that you loaded onto the curve app. And make sure you don't tap or select the curve credit. Yeah, it's really confusing, I get it. Is anyone getting curve? Yep, I have it, Anthony Venture has it, Sledge has it. Now let's go into the second most popular topic about the curve card, the go back in time feature. So Wandering Doc asks, once a transaction posts, it's posted. You're going to have to dispute all of the transactions and reassign them to the first of the month. How would the curve card cancel the transactions from the 2nd to the 30th and move them to the 1st is what I don't get. So I get it, this does sound weird, but basically how the go back in time feature works is when you use the curve card to charge the purchase on, then the curve card charges the card that you selected, maybe it's the Chase Freedom Flex, you'll see the transaction charge on your Chase Freedom Flex. Then when you use the go back in time feature to charge it on another card that you loaded up on your curve card, it'll refund the transactions on your Freedom Flex, then recharge the same transaction you just canceled onto the new card like the built card. So therefore essentially moving it. It's not really a clean process. It kind of reminds me you went to Walmart on June 15th, for example, bought something, then you came back on July 1st, returned it and bought it again. That's basically what's going on. It'll refund the first card and then charge the new card. And of course, as of right now on the US version, you can only move a transaction once using the go back in time feature, which leads to another good question asked by Carrot. So does a curve card hold your charges as pending until the 30-day mark is up? And the answer to that question is no. The transaction will post as soon as any other credit card, about 2 or 3 days. And then Patriot asks, okay, so I'm confused on that too. Does it take from the curve credit limit or does curve pull from a card on file like a Discover or Flex? So that's a good question. I understand the confusion. Depending on what card you select on the curve app, it'll charge the card on file and only charge the curve credit limit if the transaction doesn't go through properly. However, I like to think of it instead of pulling the card on file, I think the curve card is more like the middleman. Like for example, you ask your friend to go buy you a Pepsi or something, right? Your friend goes to the store, buys the Pepsi, gives you the Pepsi, and then asks for the money back. It's kind of like that in my opinion. Then the Epic Tech Kid asked, also since Curve supports Discover, instead of having another MasterCard to post the first transactions to, then go back in time, could I just use my Discover card as my primary card and then on rent date change it from Discover to Bill, or does it have to be a MasterCard? So that's a good question and that should work. I tried it when I first got the Curve card back a year ago and it worked completely fine. Honestly, I just forgot about Discover credit cards. I don't have too many of them. Good question. And then similar question, since you need a MasterCard to hold transactions before moving, I'm wondering if you can do this with a debit MasterCard or must it be a MasterCard credit card? So yes, debit cards also work for this method. There was this one time I've accidentally charged my Chase debit card. I moved the charge out of my Chase debit card onto my Bilt card and it worked. Then I've also seen some people link this term statement with go back in time, some limits may apply. Go back in time may be used once per payment account, which is true, you can only move a transaction once. The original merchant category code MCC of the transaction will not be preserved, which is kind of strange they say this because I've had no problems with this. If a purchase codes as dining, when I use the go back in time feature to move that transaction, it still codes as dining. As you can see from this example here, when I moved this dining purchase off the Chase Freedom Flex and onto the built card on the first of the month, it earned me 6 times points, therefore still coding as dining. And the second part I thought was interesting. For a successful account payment using go back in time, the new link card must be verified and in the same currency as either the original link card or the currency you were billed in. So that's interesting. So I guess you can't have a United States card and a Canadian card and a European card loaded all onto your Curve card. Now John asked about the foreign transaction fee, and this is kind of interesting, and Curve actually advertises it on their website. So the Curve card has no foreign transaction fees, but since it's an all-in-one card, for cards that do have a foreign transaction fee and can work with a Curve card, like for example the City Double Cash or the City Custom Cash, both of them have a 3% foreign transaction fee. So when you use the Curve card to physically pay for the transaction and then have that transaction route to maybe the City Double Cash, you're basically bypassing the foreign transaction fee. And that's one useful and official trick that Curve actually has. You can basically make any credit card or debit card that'll work with the Curve card have no foreign transaction fees, even if the card originally had one. And here are just some good things to know. Daniel, one of the first people to actually adopt the God Trifecta, after me of course, and he found out that you can't add the same card to more than one Curve account. So when would this be a problem? So let's say you had a player 2 and you got them the Curve card. You can't load your Freedom Flex onto your Curve card and their Curve card at the same time. You would have to get an authorized user Freedom Flex to be able to charge the same Freedom Flex. So that kind of sucks, but it's not too big of a deal. But good on Daniel for finding out that information. And then Invest8308 asked, Spencer Johnson, do you have the Curve card? And unfortunately, Spencer does not. Only time, my friend. However, I did convince Sledge to get it, and he should have the physical card soon. But from my understanding, the reason why that Spencer is skeptical about using the Curve card is exactly what Bobby Y said. Even after research, I still don't get how the turn back in time feature works. Wouldn't doing this raise a red flag from fraud or something from the dummy card company? So I definitely get it. It definitely looks sketchy getting 50 return transactions. It just looks like you returned 50 things all in one day. The only thing I can really say about this is I've been using this method for about 10 months now, and I haven't had any issues with it. I think at one point, the most transactions I moved in one day was about over 40 transactions. So personally for me, in my experience, I didn't really much worry about it. And then Boss K asked about the welcome bonus. Wait, am I seeing this correctly? Curve can add 1% cashback to any existing credit card, making a 2% cashback card a 3% cashback card. And yes, that's exactly right. For the Curve card, when you open it, for the first 6 months, whatever card you charge on the Curve card will also earn an extra 1% cash back as Curve Cash, which is basically almost the same as cash. It's a little bit confusing, so let me explain further. For whatever transactions you put using the Curve card to charge a different card, on top of that, you'll be earning an extra 1% Curve Cash. So you spent $29, you'll also be getting 29 cents Curve Cash deposited onto your Curve Cash card. Now, Curve Cash is a little bit confusing. You can't necessarily withdraw it for cash. How you actually use the Curve Cash is when you use the Curve card to pay, you have a balance, for example, in your Curve Cash card of $9.61. Maybe you go to a grocery store and buy a loaf of bread for like $2. As long as the transaction is under $9.61 and you use the Curve card to pay, then instead of actually charging your credit card, it'll actually charge the Curve Cash card first, thereby essentially making it free. Like for example, a charge that I got covered recently is when I sent a super chat to Chad Money Minutes of $3, which was under my balance, so it took it straight out of my Curve Cash account instead of charging my credit cards. So again, it's a little bit confusing, but basically you'll be earning an extra 1% cash back loaded onto like a preloaded card, and if a transaction is lower than the amount on the card, it'll take it out of that preloaded card instead of charging your credit cards. Patriot also asked about the Curve Cash. It looks like Curve points are given for free for the first 30 days, and then there's some kind of subscription fee thing after that. So Patriot, I think you're referring to the UK version, because currently the United States version of the Curve card is completely free. There's no annual fees, there's no tier memberships as of right now, and instead of 30 days, it is 6 months in the United States. So I hope that cleared it up. And then similar confusion when it comes to the annual fee of the Curve card. This translated basically asked, doesn't the card cost costs €5. The UK Europe version of the Curve card does, not the United States. Currently, it's a $0 annual fee. And also Richard asked, in the FAQ it says you can add Visa. Is that not true currently? And yes, you are right. Visa cards cannot be added as of right now for the United States version. They really gotta update that FAQ. And then another question, don't you need a premium plan on the Curve to move a lot of transactions? I'm not sure if there's a transaction limit to move a bunch of cards. However, like I said, in the United States it is currently free. Next set of questions I got was a really hot topic. Does the Curve card affect 524? And the answer to that is yes and no. So the Curve card is a credit card with a credit limit of $500. However, unlike most credit cards, the Curve card is a soft pull when checking if you're going to be approved for the Curve card. However, that doesn't matter for 524. What matters is, does it show under your credit age or line of accounts? And when I checked my credit report, I definitely didn't get any hard inquiries when I applied for the Curve card. And when checking my TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian credit reports, the Curve card only appears in my Equifax credit report. And I've had the Curve card open since June 13th of 2022. So there's no reason, if the Curve card was going to report on all 3 credit reporting agencies, that it hasn't by now. I understand it's very strange because I know many credit cards, even though they only pull specific credit reports, usually report to all 3 credit bureaus, even if you got approved using a soft pull like the Amex cards. But what can I say? It's been about a year and the Curve card has only reported to my Equifax account. In my opinion, I think the Curve card knows it's not supposed to be a credit card. It's just a credit card to have the emergency features, so they're not really concerned about reporting to all 3 credit bureaus. It could change later on, like how the Apple card did. When it first launched, it only reported to TransUnion, but later on in a couple months, the Apple card did end up reporting to all 3. It could be that kind of situation, but based on the information I have, it's only reported to my Equifax account. And another data point that comes from our friend Daniel, he applied for the Curve card on May 23rd, showed up on his Equifax account on June 8th. But that was it, just the Equifax credit report. So it's really interesting what it means for 524. Basically, in Chase for your state, if they pull Equifax, then yes, the Curve card will count towards 524. However, if you're in a state that doesn't pull Equifax, I don't see why the Curve card would count towards your 524 status. Since they don't pull that credit report, how would they know? Oh, also I've been getting a bunch of comments that's been saying that they couldn't apply for the Curve card. Like when Invest8308 left a comment saying that they tried to apply, but it said it's not available in the United States. So the Curve card is available in the United States. When you go to apply for the Curve card, just make sure you select the United States as the country of residence, and it should work fine. However, there have been other incidents where people are just getting error messages that they're not approved. I would just go ahead and try to contact Curve support on Twitter and just direct message them, and they should get back to you within 24 hours. Some other things that people have used to get around those errors is they reported to me that they just used a different phone number and a different email, and it worked completely fine. I don't know why it's doing this. I know Curve just got out of beta recently, so it could just be a glitchy problem. Now for the physical Curve card. Personally for me, I got the plastic red and white design, and currently now when you sign up for the Curve card, they're doing a promotion for anyone who signs up for the Curve card now, that they're giving away a metal version of the card, which is pretty awesome. It's a stainless steel card that weighs 18 grams, and personally I really like the design. But unfortunately for that promotion, I don't know when that ends. So I would apply now if you're really worried about it, or just take the chance that they'll have metal cards later on. But School Ruler also told me if you contact Curve customer service, you can get the metal version of the card for free, but you'll get a new credit card number. You can use your current card until you activate the new one. I actually went through with this and contact Curve support, and Curve agreed, so now I have the metal version. And then Ryan asked, is it hard to fit a curved card in a wallet? So it's not exactly a curved card. It kind of reminds me of the built cards, so wherever the built card can fit, the curved metal card can fit. So Gregory Scott asked me, how do you order a card for your player 2? So from my understanding, the curved card doesn't have any authorized user options. If you want your player 2 to have the curved card, they must sign up for the curved card themselves. And then Dr. Dark asked me, has anyone at Curve contacted you? I'm assuming that Dr. Dark is referring to the sketchy method I'm using as the God Trifecta or the Built Trifecta. And so far, Built and Curve hasn't contacted me yet. They've also haven't shut down my account either. I actually contacted Curve so I could get some help answering some questions, but unfortunately they haven't emailed me back yet. And then just some last minute questions. The Curve card in beta, should you trust it? The Curve card actually came out of beta not too long long ago, and between my experience in beta and not in beta, the curve card was just a little bit more glitchy. Sometimes instead of the transaction charging onto the card that I selected, it'll charge straight onto the curve credit. But fortunately now, I've been using it for a couple months out of beta, and so far I haven't had any issues. Everything charges correctly and the go back in time feature works. So in my personal experience and opinion, yeah, I think so. Especially since it's not exactly a new concept. It was originally only available in Europe. Now the curve card is available in the United States. It has some history behind it. And Invest8308 asks, I'm in the United States, where can I apply for the curve card? And of course, I'll have my referral links in the comments below. So feel free to use that link and I thank you. And finally, last question from the Wandering Finnick. Are you British? And no, I am not. I actually live in Mark's backyard.